So now as every chapter flows, you learn how to simplify expressions, you learn how to solve the equation, and now what we're going to do is learn how to solve applied problems. So the first type of problem we're going to solve is involving Pythagorean theorem. So this says one leg of a right triangle is 4 centimeters longer than the other leg. The length of the hypotenuse of the triangle is 12. So as soon as they start saying a right triangle, I'm going to draw a picture. So a right triangle looks like this. It has a right angle in one corner. I know it's a horrible drawing. In fact, it's bothering me. Straight line, straight line. There we go. Right angle. Okay, so legs are the sides that aren't the hypotenuse. Okay, so it says one leg of a right triangle is 4 centimeters longer than the other leg. So if one leg is x, the other leg is 4 centimeters longer, so x plus 4. The length of the hypotenuse, which is always the side across from the right angle, is 12. It's your longest side across from your largest angle. Find the length of the two legs. So they'll give you this sort of information where you can set up a drawing of your right triangle, and then you're just expected to set up Pythagorean theorem. So c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. The square of the length of the hypotenuse is equal to the square of the lengths of the other two sides added together. So the sum of the squares of the other two legs. Okay, so then we can plug in our values. Our hypotenuse is 12 squared. Our a, it doesn't matter which one's a and which one's b, so we'll call a x squared, we'll call b x plus 4, all squared. So now it's saying solve. Well, I notice that this is quadratic. To solve a quadratic equation, I now have 4 methods: factoring, square root method, which I like to call solving algebraically because it's just isolating for your x. Thirdly, completing the square. And fourthly, quadratic formula. So every single time you go to solve a quadratic equation now, you have these 4 options. The only one of these that it doesn't have to be equal to 0 is the square root method, but that's only used when you have one x squared or one variable that's within a squared sign, so we definitely can't use the square root method for this one. All the other 3 methods require us to make it equal to 0. So I'm going to go 144 is equal to x squared. I'm going to simplify this. So x plus 4 squared means x plus 4 times x plus 4. So that gives me x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16. Then I'm going to collect like terms, and I'm going to move this 144 over. So I get 0 equals 2x squared plus 8x minus 16 minus 144 is 128. Now you're left with a quadratic equation. You could try to factor this. Now before you do, I highly recommend, no matter what method you choose, I highly recommend you notice the greatest common factor of 2. So I'm going to pull a 2 out of here and I'm left with x squared plus 4x minus 64. Now if you're going to find the vertex, you do need to keep this 2. Well, you really only need to keep it. No, you need to keep it if you're finding the vertex. But since we're just solving for x, we can actually divide it out. So if you want to divide everything by 2, you can. And it does make it look simpler. So if you're not finding the max, feel free to divide everything by 2. Now we could try to factor this. We could look for 2 numbers that multiply to give me 64 and add to give me 4. But maybe I'm getting lazy. Maybe I'm going, oh, you know what, that just sounds like too much work. So I need something else. So I don't want to try factoring just because I'm being lazy. So I'm going to complete the square of the quadratic formula. Now that's personal preference. I find completing the square easy when my b term is divisible by 2. So see how this is a 4? As long as this is an even number, I will always complete the square. It's quicker than using the quadratic formula, but some people are scared of completing the square, so you can always use the quadratic formula. So you feel free, choose your method. You can plug it into the quadratic formula or complete the square. I'm going to do this by completing the square. So x squared plus 4x. I'm going to take half the middle term, which is 2. I'm going to square it to get 4, and I'm going to add it, and I'm going to subtract it. Then I'm going to factor my perfect square down to x plus 2 all squared, and I've got minus 68. So now I can solve using the square root method. So I'm going to add 68 to both sides, And then I'm going to take the square root. So I'm going to get x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 68. And then I'm going to subtract the 2. And I'm going to make sure that 68 is simplified. Is there a perfect square that divides evenly into 68? So I try. So I do 68 divided by half of 68 is 34. So I'm going to divide by 49. I don't think that's going to work. Nope. And then I'm going to do 69 divided by, or sorry, 68. 68 divided by 36. 68 divided by 25, definitely not going to work. 68 divided by 16. 68 divided by 9, 68 divided by 4, and that one works. So the highest perfect square that divides evenly into 68 is 4, with a remainder of 17. Simplifying that further, I've got negative 2 plus or minus 2 square root 17 is equal to x. So this is my exact answer. Now, I should have read the question carefully before I finished. It says, find the length of the 2 legs, solve to 1 decimal place if necessary. I didn't need to give an exact solution. As soon as they say solve to 1 decimal place, I could have stopped here. I'm going to give my 2 answers as negative 2 plus root 68 and negative 2 minus root 68. Plugging these into my calculator, I get negative 2 plus root 68. I get 6.2, and negative 2 minus root 68, and I get negative 0.2. I think I plugged that in wrong. I did. Negative 2 minus root 68. I get negative 10.2. Now, looking at what this wanted me to answer. So remember, word questions require word answers. It says one leg of the triangle is 4 centimeters longer than the other. Find the length of the 2 legs. So we know that x could be either 6.2 or negative 10.2. Well, I'm going to reject the negative answers because you can't have a negative length. So 6.2 is my answer for x. I'm going to say one of the answers is 6.2. The other one is x plus 4, which would be 6.2 plus 4, which is 10.2. So therefore, the legs are 6.2, what units are we in here? 6.2 centimeters and 10.2 centimeters. You'll notice oftentimes with the answers, the negative answer is actually your other solution, but just always take it and plug it in to double check. So those are your questions involving Pythagorean theorem, and you can go and practice some of those.